Greetings, David McKnight here. Thank you so much for taking a bit of time out of your day to learn about discovering the 5 key steps to getting a six-figure position. I also want to finish this with talking about the 3 biggest fails that I'm seeing that professionals and executives are doing that's preventing them from achieving that six-figure career position. I want to talk a little bit about the six-figure role overall, just to make sure we're all on the same page. You should realize that less than 6% of roles are earning 6 figures or more. So you're after a very small group of positions out there. Even more of a reason why you should understand that the competition's tough and your ability to stand out in that group is really critical. And that's exactly what this video is about, talking about ways to help you stand out from the rest. I think that very few people are doing the things that I'm talking about on this video. And so your ability to excel and do this stuff, I think, is going to absolutely help you in getting better results. I think one thing to realize too on the competition thing is that most of these executive positions, the ones that I'm also helping recruit for, we're really not asking for much more than 10 years of experience in something. So that really puts anybody over 35 that's qualified in play. So you're really competing against 3 decades of professionals. So again, when I do recruiting on a position, oftentimes I get over 100 people that apply, sometimes over 1,000 people. So tons of competition here. So again, this is all about helping you stand out. One thing too, and understanding about a six-figure role, you need to understand why an employer pays 6 figures and make sure you are targeted on that reason. And you may be in a couple of these areas, but I think it's important to understand that they pay 6 figures for one of 3 things. One is because you can lead people. Obviously, somebody that can lead a team and get stuff done is very, very valuable to an employer, and they will pay 6 figures for good results. The other is a leader of processes, a project manager, product manager, marketing, different disciplines. You are a process owner, an expert in some area, and you can bring a lot of value that way. And the third way is as an individual contributor. Generally, it might be in a sales position, but it can be consulting, it can be other technical roles. But those are you understand that that's you, and the reason why you want to earn a 6 figure, that you're awesome at that, and you're defining exactly where you're bringing expertise in that area. One also myth too is that a lot of employers today are really focusing on, and they can only focus on hiring specialists and experts. The generalist role just doesn't work very good for finding somebody or finding a role like that. And even these 6 figure roles, yeah, you're going to be expected to know more and have a greater level of skills in different areas. But generally, there is a focus, and that's why I just talked about those 3 areas. You need to pick your lane. You need to pick where you're an expert at. Yeah, you can bring a bunch of other great skills back with you, but focus on what really you're bringing the value and what you are speaking to the employer on that is deserving of a 6 figure income. My goal here is to just go through a conversation. I'm going to go through these things pretty quick. Hopefully you got a piece of paper and a pencil. You can write some of these things down. I absolutely believe they will help you stand out if you can get these accomplished. Number 1 is mindset. This is probably an area that I would say most people actually overlook. But when I go back and look at the people that I've worked with that have been successful in a 6 figure income position, this is a consistent area that they are able to excel at. And some of them may not do it early, but eventually this is going to get caught up with you, because the role of a 6 figure position is pretty stressful. The search itself is stressful, but these roles are big roles, and so they will take out a lot out of most of us if we do not find ways to invest in ourselves so we can protect our mindset. We can stay healthy that way. And so things that I look for is developing a daily routine and defining what that might be for you. It can be all kinds of different things depending on what works for you. It's just important investing in something that really resonates with you to get results. And things like exercise, moving your body, even 20 minutes a day can be a big deal for us. Journaling, I think, is a big area where we can really help us to get stuff out of our head, down on a piece of paper, on the computer, and help us process stuff. Reading, studies have shown the most successful people are often big readers. So committing time to doing that and learning new things is really important. Meditation. One of the big things I hear about this is I can never shut my mind off in order to meditate. Well, I'm like that too, and believe me, we can still meditate. Meditation is a great way of helping to push the world back a little bit and refocusing on ourselves to get clarity in our own world so that we can bring clarity into our jobs and our careers, and get the focus you need. So one of the big things I talk about is a beginner's mindset. And if you look that up, if you've not heard that before, but it's so critical that in this day and age, when we bring a lot of skills to the table, and a lot of us that have, those of us that have a lot of experience, we can be really guilty of this, is that I think, employers don't care what we did 20 years ago. I'm sorry to say, but let alone 30 years ago. So I think it's really important that you stay relevant to today, what's going on right now. And the way you do that is by being curious and by being engaging and by wanting to surround yourself by a lot of other smart people. And if that doesn't come across, you're going to come across as, old and outdated. And so I think it's important that you really embrace a beginner's mindset. All right, the second most important thing is getting focus and clarity. I do think this is the area where a lot of people struggle with. I work with people that not even sure what they want to do. Believe me, employers and recruiters are not in a position to help you develop your career. You need to get that focus and clarity in order to have a successful search. And so you need to really work on that. You need to find, again, what that specialty of yours is, where you are an expert at, so that you can take that and communicate that to the marketplace. You really need to talk about what your intent is. And if you're not clear what your intent is, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to execute on the rest of this process, your branding and your outreach and those types of things, because it's just, you're going to struggle. So even if you're working with a resume writer or some other folks to help you to focus on your brand, make sure you do this first, that you get really real clarity. Many of them aren't really designed and to have the skill set to help you do that. So make sure you find support if you need it to get that focus and clarity. And I break down the whole focus and clarity thing into 3 or 4 pieces. Number 1 is strategy planning. Most of us do strategy planning for our employers. Well, you can do it for yourself as well. The good news is it's just you. You're not in a room with 10 people trying to agree to what your mission and values are. But as an individual, what is your mission? What is your vision? What is your values? And I think it's important because that exercise will help you in defining your value proposition. The next thing on the list, making sure you're really clear with where you bring value, whether you growing the business or saving money or whatever it is that you bring to the table, that you're really able to clearly articulate that in 3 sentences, and then support that with facts. Another area is leveraging assessments. I think that's really important that you take the time, use those assessments to help you understand what they're telling you, and so you understand what the employer is getting from these assessments. I mean, a lot of people I know don't like them, and many don't even trust them, but employers are using them and they're going to continue using them. So your ability to leverage that information to help you. And I wrote an article about hacking the results of your assessment. So go to my LinkedIn profile and search under my articles. You'll find an article talking about that. The other area I think is really important is you defined your accomplishments quantifiably. Again, we're talking about 6-figure income earners, right? You've got to be able to really clearly articulate your value proposition, and you need to demonstrate that in your career and how you've been doing that for other employers. And you need to quantify it. You need to be able to put that into numbers so that employers can draw that connection between what you've done and how you can help them do that going forward. All right, the third one is branding. So if you've been out of the job market in a while and just dumping in, you're probably figuring out branding is probably one of the things that's changed the most. And it really has. What we were taught to do, a resume and a cover letter back in high school and college, totally doesn't make sense today. So I still think the resume is important. I would probably make an argument that resume isn't as important as it used to be. but it's not something you should take lightly and should make sure you get right. Now, I feel a little bit differently about a resume. I don't generally recommend you spend $2,000 just on a resume. I have seen executives do that. But I think what's important about a resume is that you own it. As a professional, as an executive, you need to be able to jump into Word and be able to make some changes to your own resume. You need to understand what a good resume looks like. You need to be able to keep it up and change it as your career evolves. And so you need to understand some of the core elements of what a resume is and how it is successful, because it really is communicating you and your brand. So some of the highlights on some of those things is it's very readable, right? It's 2 or 3 pages at the most. The one font, you're messing up with a bunch of different fonts. This is not really, in my opinion, not a time to exercise your graphic skills. This is a time to exercise your communication skills. The first 1/3 of your resume needs to really grab somebody's attention within 8 to 10 seconds so that they want to read more. The rest of it really is to convey a logical pattern to show that you've had a progression in your career, and ways you bring in value, the skills that you've had, the accomplishments you've achieved, and again, quantified. The other thing about branding that's important, especially in business, is your LinkedIn profile. I don't know a lot of positions now that can ignore your profile. Certainly leadership roles, they're even becoming more important. This is the one tool that works for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so ignoring it is really losing out on an opportunity to help you to spread the word about your brand, your skills, and your value to the world. 95% of employers and recruiters are using them. That should tell you how important that is. And when you're reaching out to them, it's generally the first thing they're going to look at. They're not going to go look necessarily at your resume first. They're going to probably go look at your LinkedIn profile. And so there's a good way and a right way to do a profile. I do think the profile is an opportunity to go well beyond a resume, to talk about things about your value and then your mission and your vision, and articulate a bit of a story about yourself as a professional. And so look at it as a sort of an opportunity to do a mini interview with somebody. If they're checking you out, you want to be able to make sure that profile is indeed communicating to them what you want them to know about you, in order to earn that opportunity to have that face-to-face conversation. So it's really important you take your LinkedIn profile seriously. Cover letters, the old traditional cover letter, the regurgitation of your resume is absolutely dead. If you're still doing that, you're still doing a cover letter that looks like a cover letter from the last 20 years, I'm going to tell you it's hurting your chances. As somebody that's literally read thousands of cover letters, they all start to look the same. And I'll actually make an argument that if that's what you're sending, it's probably hurting your chances more than it's helping. So instead, what I recommend is using more of a compelling cover letter, something that's disruptive, that stands out, that doesn't look like the typical one. You're being very clear, bullet points about what value you're bringing to the employer, so they get immediately why that you're worth talking to, and you're bringing things into that in a different way, and being brief and to the point, so that the hiring manager or even HR give you that opportunity to have that conversation. So while on one hand, I think the traditional cover letter is absolutely dead, and be careful if that's what you're doing. But a well done cover letter, and again, it could take the form of not necessarily a piece of paper, but it could take the form of an email, of a LinkedIn message, whatever vehicle you're doing to deliver some information about yourself. That think about how you want to do it in a very disruptive and compelling way, and that was going to get you a lot bigger bang for your buck and opening the door. Number 4 is the job search strategy. This is probably where the people maybe struggle the most, in the sense that, how do you do this, right? I mean, it's hard self-advocating, and it's hard selling yourself, and that is what we're doing, right? We are self-advocating, and we are selling ourselves. You are the product. Especially in this day and age where things seem like they're so disruptive and broken. So If you've used the job board, you know job boards are broken. Here's a clue or a little tidbit. They're not even working for employers. Employers are just as frustrated with the job board as well. So I think what's important with them, if you're using them, that you're finding ways to get around them. Go to my LinkedIn profile, under the article section, there's an article I wrote about how to get around broken job boards. So understand those processes, how you can change your paradigm, really, your results if you're using those. The other area, especially a six-figure income, is understanding that the hidden job market is absolutely real. 70% of jobs never get posted. And your ability to tap into that is critical. And so make sure you're understanding how to do that. And again, on my LinkedIn profile, there's an article I talk specifically about how to go after the hidden market. So I got 2 great articles. Go check them out. It gives you a step-by-step game plan of how to do that. A common mistake I see too in doing this outreach is not leveraging your existing network. One thing you got to realize is you're reaching out to people and asking for help and looking for a new opportunity is that most people have no clue how to do this and do it well. And so you're putting them sort of in the spot, and unless you give them some clear directions about what it is you're trying to achieve, what's going to probably happen is they're going to go quiet on you because they generally want to help, but they just don't know how. And so realize that how you can effectively use the network and the people within your network, whether that's colleagues or past employers or past supervisors or recruiters, or what the role of recruiter is. Understand those different ways of tapping into that network. Informational interviews. You should absolutely understand how to do those well. People will talk to strangers. I just think you need to be very relevant when you're reaching out to people, and you need to have the profile to back it up so that they know that you're relevant to their world. But I do think perfect strangers are willing to talk to perfect strangers if you do it well. And I think it's a great way for you to learn more about a company. It's maybe even a safer way instead of like calling up saying, hey, I want a job. Hey, I want to learn more about your company and you. Would you be willing to have a conversation? And then make sure you're committing to building your network. You know, LinkedIn is definitely a tool. It's something that shouldn't start just when you do the job search. I think it's something you should continue with. Doesn't mean spending hours a week. No, I'm not suggesting you do that. But committing some time, keeping your profile up to date, engaging people, sharing content. And I think, you know, if you don't do it now, you may regret that later. So it is something that you should be doing on a regular basis. The outreach process, understand, like any other selling process, again, this is a sales process, that it really ultimately, in my opinion, comes down to having a process. And so there are effective processes to use in order to outreach. And one of the ones that I use is a 3-step process, leveraging LinkedIn, emailing, and phone calls in order to get those conversations that you really need and change your results. So invest in a process, an outreach process that gets results. I think is a really important part of the whole process. Number 5 is interviews. I think so many people do interviews terribly. I do think the whole interview process sometimes is stacked up against you as the interviewer. And I think one of the biggest common mistakes I see, again, this is especially true the more experience you have, is you get in there and you don't want to leave anything on the table. And so you talk. And you just want to share it all, get it all on the table and essentially puke all over the interviewer. Well, that does not work, right? So the interview is part of the selling process. One of the things we taught, you know, anybody that's selling anything is taught is that you shut up and listen, right? You don't do all the talking. And so it's really important that you go into these interviews very, very prepared and your message is very succinct so you aren't constantly talking, and it gives you opportunity to be curious and engaged and ask questions and be interested in the person that you're talking to. And it will dramatically change your results by going about that in that way. So and practice it. If you need to do some mock interviewing, do that so that you get some practice and you find ways that work for you. And make sure you walk in with a lot of good questions. You've done research, you understand the role, understand the company, and you're prepared. So So those are the 5 things. I'm recap them one more time. Number 1 is mindset. Do not ignore that. Invest in yourself. It's going to pay off dividends big time down the road. Number 2 is focus and clarity. Get that before you start anything else. Before you dive into all the branding and all the other things, make sure you really understand what your value proposition is and you get the focus and clarity on the role you want. Number 3 is branding. Understand how branding's changed and leverage the tools today. If you've not done this in a long time, then invest some time and attention in figuring out how the tools are rightfully used. You are an executive. You're a six-figure earner. You solve problems. You need to own this part of it as well. Job search strategies. Talk about owning it. So again, as a six-figure earner, you're paid to get stuff done, and here's where you get stuff done. I see that most people fail at this part of it, and so it's really important that you own your own outreach strategy. Number 5 is interviews. Make sure you understand how to do an interview effectively, and you learn those skills. You walk into them prepared. So I want to real quickly go over the 3 areas that I think people are failing at when it comes to doing a search for a six-figure position. One issue that comes up a lot is ageism. It might not apply to some of you listening to me now, but many of you it probably does. My feeling about ageism is like any form of discrimination. If a company is actually engaging in any kind of discrimination, you do not want to be there. Go. So if you truly feel there's discrimination going on, exercise our way of eliminating that by not participating in it, right? I mean, we don't buy from these companies. We don't work for these kinds of companies. So, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not happening. Of course, it does happen. All kinds of discrimination, unfortunately, is still happening. But it's a form of discrimination. If that's what's happening, don't be part of it. If anything, feel thankful that you're seeing that, right? Now's the time to learn it before you start working for a company. So, but here's the thing about ageism. It's my opinion that much of it can be minimized, even eliminated by you, by the things that you do, by the things you say, the way you present yourself, your mindset. I talked about it earlier, developing that beginner's mindset, being very, very curious, constant learner. You're not walking in as a know-it-all. If you've got to project that mindset, no matter what kind of six-figure role. You have to be very relevant today. And so if you can't do that, it's going to hurt you. Your branding, I see that happen where people are putting things in their resume or your profile that projects yourself as something that's not relevant today. If you're leading off with, I bring 25 years of experience doing X, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I don't think most people, hiring people, care. What you did 25 years ago probably doesn't really matter a lot. Things have changed so much. So I do think it's important that you're really careful with your branding and the things that you put and say in your branding to not come across as old. You need to be relevant today. Focus on the last 10 years and what you can bring to the table today and going into the future. Interviewing. Probably another area. We talked about it already. You get in that interview and then you spend the whole time talking about how wonderful you are. You all this 30 years of experience to the table, and you're so afraid of not leaving something on the table that you just talk and talk and talk and talk. Well, that's just going to make you sound old. So I think it's really important that you get focus and clarity and you're able to nail those interviews in a short period of time so that you can start asking questions and being curious and what else do you need to know, and that's going to help you immensely in standing out. The second biggest fail I see is not taking assessments seriously. So, I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with them. They don't understand them. Employers don't always give you much feedback, if any feedback. But I don't see them going away. I think employers are going to continue using them. And honestly, I think they need to. There's so many candidates out there. They need tools to help them figure out really what the best candidates are. And I think when they're used, these tools are used right. They're not used to screen out people. I know some employers may. That's not, in my opinion, the effective way of using these tools. These tools are best used to help understand the candidate better, to ask better questions, and dive focus in more. But the way you can use it as a professional is take these assessments to yourself. They're online everywhere. Understand those results. If you don't understand them, get some support, get some help with them. You can use those things in two ways. Number one, you can understand the employer's thinking when they take those tests, and then potentially even meet any potential objections ahead of time. I personally believe that no assessment's going to tell if somebody's a perfect job match for a job. It just isn't. It's skills and qualifications and passion and interest and intent and all kinds of other things, motivation, relevance. Those are the things that are really going to matter. But if you don't understand what these assessments say about you can't respond. You're not going to be able to respond to them. And so many times that can be solved the whole problem. So take them seriously, learn what they mean, use them to help you understand your own branding, your own soft skills, because a lot of those assessments will do that, and then help you understand what the employer thinks. The other big fail I see is not owning your outreach process. Again, I've talked about it a couple of times. You think it needs to be a selling process, you need to own it. And with a six-figure income earner, one of the things that all employers are going to expect is you get stuff done, right? You're going to come in here and you're bringing certain technical expertise, and you can, get things done. You can lead people, own processes, and if you can't do that for yourself, that's going to probably say something, right? You've got to own that yourself. You've got to learn to sell something, and you need to sell yourself too. And it doesn't have to come off fishy or insincere, or, in matter of fact, done the wrong way, it can actually really obviously backfire on you. So, but it's important that you own the process, you figure out a process that works for you, and you invest in it. No, recruiters aren't going to get you a job. They're just giving you the opportunity to get you the job. No employer is going to give you the job. They're just giving you an opportunity to earn a chance to get consideration for a job. So you need to own that process, own it. And this has nothing to do whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or how outgoing you are, or how you can get up in front of a crowd of people and talk or not. Matter of fact, I would probably rather work with an introvert sometimes, because it's easier, because they understand processes sometimes better. So none of that matters. What's important is that you own it and you define a process so it works for you. You understand the relationships of the people that you're working with, your network, your employers, recruiters, a coach if you've got one, and leverage those relationships to effectively help you. So I hope that's helpful. Those three things, I see people making them all the time, and I'm hoping that you don't make them now going forward. So I think it's really important that, if you're not quite at that six-figure income phase, that you take there's some things you've taken out of this to help you put yourself on the path and prepare. I do offer a discovery session. Below this video is a link to schedule an appointment with me. In that meeting, really, it's my opportunity to learn more about you and your goals and what you want to get accomplished. I've not met two people that have the exact same process to go about it. There are obviously some things some common threads and common elements of an effective job search, but what you specifically need could vary, depend on where you're at with your search, what roles you want, what you bring to the table, where you're at in that process. So I do that 30-minute phone conversation to understand that and to develop a plan for you, a plan that gets you results. My approach and what I'm trying to bring to the table here is I'm leveraging my 30 years as a hiring manager. I've been very fortunate. I've been a CEO, a CFO, a COO. I've built 7 or 8 different teams. I've hired well over 100, probably over 1,000 now, well over 100 executives. And, I understand that process. I am the person you want to get in front of and convince that you're ready for the job. I'm not a resume writer. I can help you get yours done. And I'm certainly not a certificate career coach. I'm drawing upon my own experience as an employer. I'm trying to give you the insights of an employer, tell you what employers today cannot or generally cannot share. So I'm hoping that that's the way you look at this. Tap into my network, tap into the experience I have. And I understand where you're coming from. You know, about 8 years ago, I lost a job of 22 years, and it took me 18 months to find another one. I don't want that to happen to you. I spent the last years really pulling this stuff together, figuring out what works, understanding what the search looks like on the other side of the table. I understand the employer side really well. I've now invested a lot of time understanding what it looks like on your side of the table, and I'm here to bring you those insights to help you get this accomplished and achieve your dream of getting a six-figure income and maybe even a lot more. So hopefully you find that value. Please take advantage of the link below. I'd love to have a conversation, even if it's just to give you some ideas and helping you get out an effective approach to your search and come out with a plan that you can put in force. So thank you very much for your time. David McKnight, thanks a lot.